Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Whispers of the Rose Queen. These stories are works of art that comes from the heart, so sit back, relax, and let your imaginations run wild. Now, let's begin with the story.
In the glittering, hollow heart of the city, where ambition was measured in carats and morality was a forgotten currency, there lived a woman named Sydney. To the scrolling world, she was a vision of curated luxury, a socialite, a muse, a prize. But in the shadows she cast, she was something else entirely, a black widow, spinning webs not of silk, but of deceit, her prey the wealthy, married men who mistook her venom for nectar. Her method was a cruel art. She would find them, these lords of finance and industry, men hungry for a taste of forbidden youth. With whispers and calculated touches, she would seduce them away from their lives, leading them to a quick, secret marriage. Then, in the intimate glow of a romantic dinner, she would pour the poison, a tasteless, odorless agent, into their wine. Their deaths were always ruled tragic heart attacks or unforeseen ailments, and Sydney, the grieving new widow, would inherit fortunes, her smile hidden behind a black veil. She had a former friend, Keshia, who had seen the darkness behind the dazzle. One evening, as Sydney admired a new diamond bracelet, Keshia had warned her, her voice low and grave. "You will reap what you sow, Sydney. The seeds you plant in darkness will grow into a forest you cannot escape. If you sow bad seeds, the harvest will come for you." Sydney had merely laughed, the sound like a shattering crystal. "Darling," she purred, "I'm planting orchards of gold. The only thing coming for me is a bigger vault." And so, Sydney continued, her tally reaching 6 silent graves and billions in stolen life insurance. Her soul, if she had ever possessed one, was now a polished, empty stone. Keshia, meanwhile, had found a life away from the glare. She worked as a discreet personal assistant at a formidable tech conglomerate and, against all her guarded instincts, had fallen deeply, truly in love. The object of her affection was Raguel, the company's enigmatic billionaire founder. He was kind, brilliant, and saw in Keshia a piece he'd been searching for. For the first time, Keshia knew a happiness that was not a performance. Then, the nightmare came. In a fitful sleep, she saw Sydney, her smile a razor's edge, leaning over a drowsy Raguel, a familiar vial in her hand. Keshia awoke in a cold sweat, the prophecy echoing in her mind, "You will reap what you sow." Driven by a terror that sharpened into cold resolve, Keshia used her skills to delve into the shadows Sydney inhabited. What she discovered froze her blood, a meticulous list, a ledger of future fortunes. And at the top, freshly inscribed, was Raguel's name. The nightmare was a premonition. Sydney's next harvest was planned. "You've already murdered 6 men, Keshia whispered to the silent night, her voice devoid of all warmth. "But you will not murder my Raguel." The trap was not one of bars and locks, but of pride and pattern. Keshia knew Sydney's rituals. The hunt, the capture, the final, intimate act. She knew that before a major engagement, Sydney would indulge in a long, hot bubble bath in her penthouse suite, a sacrament of vanity where she would commune with her own reflection and her next target. That very night, Sydney lay submerged in her marble tub, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and hubris. She was on the phone with Raguel, her voice a honeyed trap, laying the groundwork for their first meeting. Unseen, a figure dressed in impenetrable black, moving with a silence that absorbed sound, picked the sophisticated lock and entered the perfumed lair. Sydney ended the call, a victorious smile playing on her lips. She sank back into the water, feeling like a great cat that had devoured the world. For a moment, there was only the gentle pop of bubbles and the beat of her own contented heart. Then, a hand, firm, unyielding, final, clamped over her forehead and shoved her under. The world erupted in a chaos of warm, suffocating froth. Sydney thrashed, a scream bursting into useless bubbles. "Help! Somebody!" Her cry was cut short as she was wrenched up for a gasp of air, only to be plunged down again with brutal force. The perfumed water, once a symbol of her luxury, filled her lungs. The bubbles of her bath became the bubbles of her last, desperate breaths. As the life began to fade from her, time stretched and twisted. Flashes of her own life, not as she curated it, but as it truly was, assaulted her. She saw herself laughing, a sharp, cruel sound, as weeping widows in black were escorted from gravesides. She watched her own fingers dance across a phone screen, boasting to millions of hollow admirers. She saw her hand, steady and sure, tipping a vial into a glass of vintage burgundy, her eyes meeting her victim's adoring gaze across a candlelit table. She felt the weight of stolen millions, throwing fistfuls of banknotes into the air like confetti at a perverse parade. And she heard her own laughter again, echoing against cold marble headstones. In her final, sinking moment, as she floated helplessly in the tub that had become her coffin, the truth crashed upon her with the weight of the ocean. This was no random intruder. This was the harvest. This was the reaping. The bad seeds had grown, and their fruit was a silent, vengeful justice. She had been meticulously, perfectly, set up. The figure in black stood over the stilling water, then rolled up a sleeve. On the right forearm, etched in stark ink, was a declaration, Romans 13:4. A reminder that the bearer is an agent of wrath, bringing punishment on the wrongdoer. The intruder was Keshia. The silent killer. The reaper. With a final, silent stream of bubbles escaping Sydney's parted lips, the golddigger died alone, surrounded by the opulent nothingness she had worshipped. The next morning, a hotel maid's muffled scream pierced the penthouse silence. Police and detectives swarmed the scene, but found nothing, no forced entry, no fingerprints, no clues. It was a perfect, ghostly crime. A tragic accident in a bath, they would eventually conclude. Far away, on a sun-drenched terrace overlooking the Nigerian coast, Keshia and Raguel lounged in a bubbling jacuzzi. She handed him a fresh coconut, its water sweet and clear. He took her hand, his thumb gently stroking the inside of her wrist, nowhere near the tattoo that told her secret. A peace, deep and earned, settled between them. And so the fable ends, a chilling whisper on the wind. It serves to remind us that the universe keeps a ledger, and karma knows every address. You may sow your seeds in hidden, gilded fields, but the harvest will always come. It is best, then, to sow with kindness, lest you one day find yourself drowning in the bitter waters of your own making.
That's the end of the story. Thank you and kindly please leave a like, share, and subscribe.